Amara Johnson had heard many sounds working in the Whitmore estate, but nothing in her 32 years prepared her for this. A sharp, piercing cry ripped through the mansion, the kind of cry that makes your chest tighten and your breath catch in your throat, a baby scream, high, frantic, desperate. It wasn't just noise, it was panic, pain, and fear packed into one sound. She froze where she stood in the kitchen, her hands still damp from washing Liam's bottles, her heart pounding so hard she thought the whole house could hear it. And then, without thinking, she dropped the bottle, water splashing across the marble floor, and ran. Before we go any further, if stories like this move you, if you believe every child deserves safety and love, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now, tap that like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one, because what happened inside that nursery would shake Greenwich's richest family to its core. Amara's soft-soled shoes slapped against the polished floors as she raced up the grand staircase, her breath ragged, chest burning. She didn't think about her job, about boundaries, about what anyone might say. All she could hear was Liam. The sound came from the nursery at the end of the west wing. She reached the door, hand trembling, and pushed it open, and froze. 2-year-old Liam Whitmore stood unsteady in the corner, his tiny hands gripping the bars of his crib, tears streaking his pink cheeks, his whole little body shaking. His right arm was mottled with deep purple bruises, ugly marks against his pale skin. On the velvet armchair beside the crib sat Evelyn Whitmore, the glamorous socialite wife of tech billionaire Daniel Whitmore, her head lolled back, her blonde hair tangled, a bottle of prescription pills spilled across the carpet at her feet. Her silk robe hung loosely off one shoulder, and her hand clutched an empty glass. The sharp, bitter smell of alcohol hung heavy in the air. "Mrs. Whitmore," Amara whispered, her voice cracking as she rushed to Liam's side, scooping him up gently. He clung to her neck, sobbing into her shoulder, his tiny heartbeat racing against her chest. She turned toward Evelyn, panic clawing at her throat. "Liam's hurt, we need to call Dr. Carter right now." Evelyn's eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she sat up, blinking against the light, confusion flashing in her glassy blue eyes before sharp anger overtook them. She snatched the glass from the side table, slammed it down, and slurred, What are you doing in here?" Amara hesitated. I heard him crying. He's bruised, I think he's. But Evelyn cut her off, her voice rising, dripping venom. Don't you dare accuse me. You people can't be trusted with my son." The words hit like a slap. Amara froze, Liam clinging tighter, whimpering softly in her arms. She wanted to scream, wanted to defend herself, but her training, her years of swallowing humiliation, forced her to stand there in silence, breathing through the sting. Evelyn staggered to her feet, swaying slightly, mascara smudged under her eyes. She jabbed a manicured finger at Amara's face. "Get out. Get out of this room before I have Daniel fire you by noon. You hear me? One word, just one word, and you're gone." Amara's chest ached, but she set Liam gently back into the crib, brushing a soft kiss against his forehead. "It's okay, baby. I've got you," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Evelyn's wild gaze never left her, like a predator circling prey. Downstairs, Amara found Clara Evans, the head housekeeper, in the butler's pantry polishing silver. Her hands shook as she told Clara what she'd seen, the bruises, the pills. Evelyn passed out while Liam cried alone. Clara's sharp features remained unmoved, her thin lips curling into a cold smile. "Amara, I've been here 20 years, she said coolly. "Mrs. Whitmore loves her son. You're overreacting. Don't bring this up again if you value your job." "But Clara," Amara pleaded, lowering her voice, "I saw the bruises. Something's wrong." Clara stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, steel beneath her words. "Listen carefully, sweetheart. You're just the help here. You start making accusations against Evelyn, and you'll be out on the street before the sun sets. You understand me?" It felt like a punch to the gut, but Amara nodded. She didn't trust Clara, but she couldn't risk making an enemy yet. That evening, she waited for Daniel Whitmore to return. The billionaire patriarch swept into the Grand Library still on a call about a major tech merger, his voice clipped and impatient. When Amara approached him softly, trying to explain what she'd seen, he held up a hand, silencing her mid-sentence. "Not now, Amara," he said sharply. "I have a $100 billion deal on the line. I don't have time for stories. If you start spreading rumors about my wife, I'll have no choice but to replace you." Her throat tightened, but she stepped back, nodding quietly. He didn't even look at her as he returned to his call. In the shadows of the library's mezzanine, Margaret Whitmore, Daniel's 68-year-old mother, watched the exchange silently. Her sharp eyes, gray and cold, like winter steel, followed Amara as she left, shoulders heavy, heart pounding. Later that night, as Amara folded linens in the laundry room, she felt a hand slip something into her pocket. She turned to find Margaret standing there, her expression unreadable. Without a word, the older woman walked away, her heels clicking softly against the marble. Amara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded note. It read, in careful, elegant handwriting. "Document everything. I'm with you." Her chest tightened, a wave of relief mixed with fear. For the first time since Liam's cries echoed through the mansion, she felt a spark of hope, but also the weight of a coming storm. Later that night, after the mansion fell silent, Amara returned to the nursery. Liam slept fitfully, his small hand clutching the corner of his blanket, a soft whimper escaping his lips. Under the dim glow of the nightlight, Amara saw it, another faint bruise, this time on his tiny leg, half hidden beneath his pajamas. Her stomach churned. She brushed his curls gently and whispered a promise only he could hear. "I won't let anyone hurt you, Liam, not ever again." But even as the words left her lips, she remembered Evelyn's final threat before storming out of the nursery hours earlier, her voice sharp and cold. "Cross me, Amara, and you'll lose everything." Standing there in the quiet, beneath the faint hum of the nightlight, Amara knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning. The bruises, the lies, the secrets buried deep within these walls, all of it would come to light. And when it did, nothing in Greenwich would ever be the same again. The mansion was silent the next morning, but Amara's nerves weren't. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow heavier. As she polished the silver in the dining hall, she heard it, the crash of glass from upstairs, followed by muffled shouting. She hesitated, glancing up at the grand staircase, heart pounding. Slowly, she climbed toward the noise, footsteps careful against the polished wood, until she reached Evelyn's suite. The door was ajar. Inside, the once perfect room was chaos. Shattered glass glittered on the carpet, a perfume bottle lay broken near the dresser, and Evelyn Whitmore stood barefoot, pacing wildly, silk robe slipping off her shoulders. Her movements were sharp, unsteady, her blonde hair disheveled, mascara smudged beneath glassy blue eyes. Amara stayed in the doorway, careful. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said softly, "is everything okay?" Evelyn froze mid-step, her gaze snapping to Amara, and for a brief moment, her face softened. But just as quickly, rage overtook her again. "Get out," she hissed, voice low and sharp like broken glass. "Get out of my room. And stay out." Amara swallowed hard, nodding slowly, stepping back into the hallway, but not before noticing the small prescription vial lying open on the vanity, pills scattered like confetti across the marble. Later, while changing linens in Evelyn's room, Amara heard something she wasn't supposed to. Evelyn's voice, low and frantic, carrying through the half-closed bathroom door. "I told you, I need more, yes, today. I can't do this without it." Her tone cracked as she whispered, "No one can find out." Amara froze where she stood, breath shallow, folding a pillowcase slowly so her presence wouldn't be noticed. But the wooden door creaked slightly under her shifting weight, and Evelyn's head snapped around, eyes narrowing. "Were you listening to me?" Evelyn's voice rose, sharp with accusation. "How dare you eavesdrop on me?" Amara shook her head quickly, words catching in her throat. "No, ma'am, I was just changing the sheets." Evelyn didn't let her finish. "You think you're clever? That I don't see what you're trying to do?" Her voice dripped venom as she stepped closer, pointing an unsteady finger. "You want to ruin me. But you won't. I'll ruin you first." Before Amara could respond, Clara Evans appeared in the doorway, the head housekeeper's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Mrs. Whitmore," Clara said smoothly, "I just came to check in. Is there a problem here?" Evelyn turned instantly, anger shifting into fragile helplessness. "She's spying on me, Clara. I don't feel safe with her here." Clara's sharp gaze flicked to Amara, cold and cutting. "I see," she murmured, stepping inside. "Amara, maybe it's best you leave this room." Amara's chest tightened, but she nodded quietly, retreating without a word. She could feel Clara's satisfaction like heat against her back. Hours later, in the laundry room, Clara cornered her. The older woman leaned casually against the doorframe, arms folded, eyes calculating. "You really should be careful," Clara said softly, her voice almost sweet but edged with threat. "Mrs. Whitmore has influence in this town. Families like hers, they don't lose battles." Amara clenched the edge of the ironing board, forcing herself to stay calm. "I'm just trying to protect Liam," she whispered. Clara's smile faded, her voice dropping lower. "Protect yourself first." That night, Margaret Whitmore sought her out again, finding Amara in the pantry stacking linens. Without a word, she pressed a small burner phone into Amara's hand, her gray eyes steady, unreadable. "Record her," Margaret whispered, barely moving her lips. "She's unraveling. Sooner or later, the truth will come out, but we need proof." Amara hesitated, holding the small device in her palm like it was a weapon. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Margaret's gaze hardened. "Because my grandson deserves better than this." And with that, she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the hall. Amara knew she couldn't do this alone. That evening, she found Nathan Brooks, the young security technician who managed the estate's complex camera system. In a quiet corner of the staff quarters, she told him everything: Liam's bruises, Evelyn's erratic behavior, Clara's threats. Nathan's jaw tightened as he listened, anger flashing in his eyes. "I've noticed the nursery cameras were disabled," he said finally, voice low. "I thought it was a glitch, but now, no. Evelyn had someone cut the feed." He pulled out his tablet, fingers moving quickly, scanning archived data. After a long moment, he found it, a deleted clip, partially corrupted but salvageable. On the tiny screen, Evelyn stumbled into the nursery late one night, a glass in one hand, Liam in the other. Then, as she lost balance, she dropped him. The footage cut there, but the sound of his terrified cry filled the tiny speaker. Amara covered her mouth, tears welling. The next morning, Amara approached Daniel cautiously in the library, presenting the footage on Nathan's tablet. Daniel's face went pale as he watched, his hand tightening around the back of his chair. But when the clip ended, his voice was quiet, pained, almost broken. I need time," he said, rubbing his forehead, avoiding her gaze. "Evelyn, she's my wife. I can't." He stopped, shaking his head, before leaving without another word. That evening, the Whitmores hosted a small family dinner. Margaret, seated at the head of the table, sipped her wine slowly, eyes sharp as blades. In the warm glow of the chandelier, she asked Daniel casually, "Do you think Evelyn's been herself lately? She seems tired." Evelyn froze mid-bite, her fork clattering softly against her plate, and shot Margaret a glare. Daniel glanced nervously between them but said nothing. Amara, serving soup at the table's edge, kept her head down, pretending not to notice the tension. Evelyn's lips curled into a tight smile. "I'm perfectly fine," she said sweetly, though her knuckles whitened around her glass. Later, after dinner, Evelyn found Amara alone in the laundry room, slamming the door behind her. Her voice was low, dangerous, trembling with fury. "You think you're clever," she hissed. "You think you can turn Daniel against me? I will bury you, Amara. Do you hear me? I'll ruin you." Amara stood frozen, heart pounding, but forced herself to meet Evelyn's glare, silent and unbroken. When Evelyn finally stormed out, Amara leaned against the cool wall, clutching the burner phone tight in her fist. Every instinct told her to quit, to walk away from this toxic house of secrets and lies. But then she thought of Liam, his tiny arms around her neck, the bruises on his skin, the soft, broken whimper in his sleep, and she knew she couldn't. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was a fight. And Amara Johnson wasn't backing down. The storm inside the Whitmore estate had been building quietly, but that morning, it finally cracked open. Amara was vacuuming the staircase when she heard the sharp sound of raised voices upstairs. Evelyn's scream cut through the silence like broken glass. Heart pounding, she rushed toward the commotion and stopped just outside the nursery door. Evelyn was inside, pacing wildly, holding a glass of red wine even though it was barely 10 in the morning. Her blonde hair was messy, her silk robe half open, and her voice shook with rage as she muttered to herself. Amara stepped carefully into the room, trying to soothe the chaos. "Mrs. Whitmore, maybe you should sit down." That's when Evelyn turned sharply, eyes bloodshot, and shoved Amara hard against the staircase railing. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, her hand gripping the polished wood to steady herself. Evelyn's voice rose to a vicious scream. "Stay away from my son. Stay away from my family." Liam, sitting on the floor with his toy blocks, started crying immediately, his little voice trembling with fear. Amara gathered herself, crouched down, and gently scooped him into her arms, whispering, "Shoo, it's okay, baby, I've got you," even as her own heart hammered against her ribs. But when she noticed the fresh cut on Liam's tiny hand, her body went cold. The thin line of blood traced across his knuckles told her exactly what she already feared. This wasn't clumsiness, this was neglect. Without waiting another second, she wrapped his small fingers in a tissue, holding him close, and drove straight to Greenwich Hospital. Dr. Olivia Carter, the trusted pediatrician Amara had quietly contacted before, examined Liam carefully under the soft fluorescent lights of the emergency room. After a long pause, Dr. Carter looked up, her voice calm but firm. "This injury didn't happen today. And it wasn't from play. This is from a sharp object. Someone isn't watching him closely, Amara." Amara closed her eyes briefly, fighting back tears. She'd feared it, but hearing it confirmed made her chest ache. Nurse Emily Hayes joined them, her voice hushed as she whispered, "Evelyn brought him here last week, too." She was incoherent, slurred speech, reeking of alcohol. "I didn't say anything then, but Amara, you need to protect him." Back at the mansion later that evening, Margaret summoned Amara to the garden patio, away from prying ears. The older woman's sharp gray eyes met hers as she slipped a small USB drive into Amara's palm. "Bank records," Margaret said softly. "Tens of thousands spent on prescription pills and illicit shipments. If Daniel sees this, he won't be able to ignore the truth any longer." Amara hesitated, clutching the device tightly, her breath uneven. "Why are you helping me like this?" she asked quietly. Margaret's lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile, but her voice remained steel. "Because Evelyn's weakness is destroying this family, and my grandson will not grow up in her chaos." Later that night, Amara met Nathan and Ethan in the basement, where the estate's security hub glowed with rows of small monitors. Nathan tapped furiously on the keyboard, pulling up restricted files Evelyn had ordered deleted weeks ago. "She thought this footage was gone," he said, his jaw tight, "but she didn't know I set up a shadow archive." After several tense moments, Ethan adjusted the feed and pulled up a hidden camera view from the wine cellar. On screen, Evelyn staggered in, a half-empty bottle in one hand, Liam trailing behind her in his little pajamas. The video showed her screaming at no one, hurling bottles against the wall as glass shattered around the toddler, who clutched his toy bear, crying softly in the corner. The clip ended abruptly, but the image burned into Amara's mind like fire. She covered her mouth, shaking, while Nathan turned away, muttering under his breath, she shouldn't be anywhere near him. Just when Amara thought things couldn't get worse, Clara struck her hardest blow yet. The next afternoon, Amara was called into the staff office, where Clara stood beside the estate's head of security, holding up a diamond necklace worth nearly $30,000. "We found this in Amara's locker," Clara announced coldly, her expression triumphant. Amara froze, staring at the glittering piece of jewelry she'd never touched in her life. "That's not mine," she whispered, her voice shaking but steady. Clara crossed her arms, feigning sorrow. "It's a shame. After everything Mrs. Whitmore has done for you, stealing from this family? Disgraceful." Before she could defend herself, Evelyn walked in, her expression painted in mock outrage. "Fire her," Evelyn ordered coldly, her tone dripping with false authority. "Now." But before the security chief could respond, Margaret stepped into the room, her presence commanding instant silence. "No one is firing anyone," she said sharply, her gaze locking on Clara, then Evelyn. "This house has more cameras than you remember. If Amara stole that necklace, we'll see it on the footage. I assume none of you would object to checking, yes?" Clara faltered, her cheeks pale, but Evelyn's glare burned hotter than ever. That night, Evelyn found the burner phone Margaret had given Amara. The screen lit up in Evelyn's hand as she scrolled through the recorded clips, moments Amara had captured of her erratic outbursts, slurred accusations, and cruel threats. Evelyn's scream shook the walls. She hurled the phone against the marble floor, shattering it to pieces. "You're finished," she shouted, voice hoarse with fury. "I will destroy you, Amara. Do you hear me? Destroy you." Her words echoed through the hallway, sharp and cutting like the glass beneath her feet. Shaken but unbroken, Amara retreated to her small room in the staff quarters, locking the door behind her. Her hands trembled as she picked up the USB drive and slipped it into her bag, holding onto it like it was the last weapon she had left. In that quiet, dimly lit space, she thought of Liam's tiny bruises, his tear-streaked face, the nights he cried alone in his crib. Every instinct told her to quit, to walk away, to find safety somewhere else. But she couldn't, not when his safety hung in the balance. The next morning, Margaret called her into the sunroom, where the soft autumn light spilled across the glass walls. "We have one chance," Margaret said calmly, setting down her teacup. "The gala next week. Every elite in Greenwich will be here. Daniel. Investors. Media. I'll make sure the right eyes are watching. You'll show them the footage. You'll make them see." Amara hesitated, fear knotting her stomach, but she nodded slowly, determination hardening her voice. "If this is the only way, then I'll do it." She walked out of the sunroom, clutching the plan close like a shield. Her fear hadn't disappeared, if anything, it was louder now, screaming in the back of her mind. But beneath the fear was something stronger, sharper, unshakable: resolve. Amara Johnson was done being quiet. She was done being silenced. This wasn't just about her job anymore. It wasn't even about Evelyn. It was about Liam. About truth. About making sure no one ever used their power to bury what mattered most. And as she stood in the nursery that night, watching Liam sleep peacefully under the soft glow of the nightlight, she whispered to herself, steady and certain. "This ends at the gala." The night of the Whitmore Charity Gala arrived with quiet tension that hummed beneath the glittering chandeliers and soft music of the grand ballroom. The estate had never looked more magnificent. Polished marble floors reflected golden light, champagne glasses clinked softly as Greenwich's most powerful whispered behind manicured hands, and a string quartet played a delicate melody in the corner. But Amara Johnson, standing near the far wall in her simple black uniform, felt no awe for the wealth and opulence around her. Her chest was tight, her breath shallow, her palms damp. Tonight was the night. Tonight, every secret buried in these walls would surface. As guests laughed softly over rare vintages and whispered about upcoming stock mergers, Margaret Whitmore moved gracefully through the crowd, her gray silk gown catching the light with every step. From across the room, her sharp gaze met Amara's for a brief moment. One small nod, subtle but certain, was all the signal she needed. Amara's heart pounded louder than the music as she watched Evelyn sweep into the ballroom on Daniel's arm, draped in an emerald green designer gown, diamonds glittering at her neck. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her expression painted in polite serenity, but her eyes burned when they landed on Amara standing by the projector console near the back of the room. Clara Evans trailed behind Evelyn, lips tight, posture rigid, her gaze fixed coldly on Amara like a loaded weapon. Nathan and Ethan stood quietly near the side entrance, posing as discreet technicians, their expressions masked with calm professionalism. Hidden inside Nathan's jacket pocket was the small USB drive containing the wine cellar footage, Evelyn's meltdown, the screaming, the shattered bottles, Liam's terrified cries echoing in the background. Daniel took the stage first, his baritone voice smooth as he addressed the audience. "Tonight," he began, "we gather to celebrate compassion, community, and our shared responsibility to protect those who need us most." His words were perfectly rehearsed, the delivery flawless, but Amara watched his fingers tighten slightly around the microphone, saw the faint tremor at the edge of his jawline. He didn't know yet what was about to unfold, but some part of him could feel it coming. Margaret approached the podium gracefully, her presence commanding silence without effort. "Before we proceed with the announcements," she said softly, "I'd like to share something important. As a family, we believe in truth, transparency. And tonight, we are going to honor those values." Evelyn's polite smile faltered, her hand tightening around her champagne flute. "Mother," she whispered sharply under her breath, eyes darting nervously, "what are you doing?" Margaret ignored her, signaling discreetly toward Nathan, who stepped forward and connected the USB drive to the main projector. The room fell silent as the lights dimmed, the quartet stopping mid-note. A massive screen lowered from the ceiling, glowing softly. The first frame appeared, Evelyn, barefoot in the wine cellar, her hair wild, clutching a bottle of red wine, Liam's small figure trembling in the corner, clutching his toy bear. The soft murmur of confusion rippled across the ballroom as the video continued, Evelyn's voice screeching incoherently, the sound of glass shattering, and then Liam's terrified cry echoing through the speakers. Gasps erupted. Whispered voices filled the silence. Someone dropped their champagne flute, the glass exploded against the marble floor. "No," Evelyn whispered, shaking her head, her polished composure fracturing instantly. "No, turn it off. Turn it off right now." She lunged toward the projector, but Nathan stepped forward calmly, blocking her path without a word. "Daniel," Evelyn screamed, her voice cracking, "they're framing me. This is lies. It's all lies." But Daniel didn't move. He stood frozen, his face pale, his expression hollow, watching every second of the footage. The video ended, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. Evelyn's breathing came in ragged gasps, her chest rising and falling beneath the emerald gown, her perfect facade shattered under the weight of every eye in the room. Margaret stepped forward, her voice steady, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "These," she said calmly, "are the choices Evelyn made while entrusted with the care of my grandson." Her gaze swept across the stunned faces of Greenwich's elite, pausing deliberately on Daniel before she turned back to Evelyn. "We have been silent for too long. No more." Evelyn's voice broke into a raw, furious scream. "This is your doing," she shouted, pointing directly at Amara, her hands trembling violently. "She's behind this. She's poisoned you against me. She wants me gone because she hates me. She turned to the crowd, voice hoarse, mascara running in streaks down her cheeks. You think I'm the villain? You think I don't love my son? You don't know anything about me. Margaret's reply was soft, deliberate, but final. We know enough. And then Daniel stepped forward slowly, his expression unreadable as he faced Evelyn. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the hushed ballroom. How long, he asked simply. How long have you been lying to me? Evelyn reached for his arm, desperate now, her voice pleading. Danny, please, I can explain, I was under pressure, I wasn't thinking, he stepped back, his face hardening with every word. Not thinking? Evelyn, you endangered our son. You lied to me. And you tried to destroy the one person who's been protecting him all along. His gaze drifted briefly toward Amara, and in that moment, the quiet recognition in his eyes told her everything. He finally believed her. Clara tried to interject, her voice cutting sharply through the tension. Daniel, with respect, this isn't the time for public drama. We can resolve this privately, within the family. Margaret turned to her slowly, her steel-gray eyes cold and unyielding. Clara, she said evenly, you've done enough damage. The necklace. The tampered footage. The lies. Do not speak again. Clara stiffened, her lips pressed into a thin line, retreating silently toward the shadows at the edge of the ballroom. Across the room, phones were already out, discreetly recording, snapping photos, uploading clips to social media. Within minutes, the whispers became digital, flashing across feeds in real time, #Whitmore Gala, #ProtectLiam, and #Justice for Amara surged into trending topics before the night had even ended. Evelyn's final composure cracked entirely. She lunged at Amara across the ballroom, her scream piercing above the murmurs, her hands curled into fists. But Nathan and Ethan moved swiftly, stepping between them, restraining Evelyn without force but with firm control. Her voice was hoarse, wild, spitting every venomous word she had left. You'll regret this, Amara. I'll ruin you. I'll ruin all of you. It was Dr. Olivia Carter who stepped forward then, calm but resolute, holding a manila folder. I think the police will decide that, she said, her voice carrying easily through the stunned silence. These are Liam's medical records. Photographs of his injuries. Reports from my staff. Mrs. Whitmore, you endangered your son, and tonight, it stops. She turned toward the uniformed officers already entering the ballroom, summoned quietly by Margaret long before the gala began. The arrest was quiet, swift, and devastating. Evelyn's emerald gown trailed across the marble floor as she was escorted out, her wild protests echoing behind her. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the guests as reporters outside captured every second, their flashes lighting up the estate like lightning in a storm. In the corner of the ballroom, Daniel finally turned to Amara, his voice low, weighted with remorse. I should have believed you sooner, he said quietly. You saved my son. Amara swallowed hard, emotion threatening to break her voice, but she managed a small nod. Liam deserves better, she whispered. Margaret placed a steady hand on Amara's shoulder, her silent approval stronger than any words. But as the night wore on, Amara couldn't shake the feeling in her chest, this wasn't the end. Evelyn's glare, her final words, her unbroken fury even as she was led away, it all left a chill deep in her bones. The storm wasn't over. It had only begun. The days after the gala felt strangely quiet, as if the Whitmore estate itself was holding its breath. Evelyn Whitmore's arrest dominated every headline. Her emerald gown trailing behind police officers became the defining image of the scandal. A court ordered her into mandatory rehab and barred her from Liam until further notice. For Amara Johnson, the chaos had passed, but the weight of it lingered in every quiet hallway. Daniel changed after that night. The distracted tech billionaire, once consumed by mergers and markets, became a father again. He spent his mornings with Liam, his evenings reading bedtime stories, his voice softer now. One morning in the marble foyer, Daniel stopped Amara gently, his eyes heavy with remorse. "I owe you more than I can ever repay," he said, his gaze falling to his son's tiny hand clinging to her shoulder. "You saved him, and you saved me." Amara could only nod, her throat too tight for words. Nearby, Margaret gave her a rare, approving smile, silent, but full of meaning. The following week, Daniel stood before cameras at Whitmore Tech headquarters, announcing the creation of the Liam Whitmore Foundation, funding protections for children, domestic workers, and guardians like Amara. "No child," he said firmly, "should ever feel unheard. No worker should ever feel powerless." When he named Amara as a consultant and co-director, the applause was immediate. For the first time since stepping foot into this mansion, she wasn't invisible anymore. That afternoon, Margaret joined Amara in the garden beneath the sprawling oak where Liam often played. The golden autumn leaves drifted softly around them, warm light spilling across the grass. "You kept your promise," Margaret said quietly, her silver cane resting by her side. Amara smiled faintly. "I didn't do it alone." Margaret's gaze shifted toward the nursery windows above. Her voice dropped, steady and low. "Evelyn won't stay silent forever. People like her rarely do. Be prepared." Later, back in her small Bridgeport apartment, Amara finally breathed for the first time in weeks. The chipped mug on the counter, the hum of the old heater, the creak of the wooden floor, it all grounded her. Her phone buzzed endlessly with messages, reporters asking for statements, strangers sharing their stories, parents thanking her for speaking up. That night, she posted a single photo of the Whitmore Gardens golden oak with just 3 words beneath it. "Truth outlasts lies." By morning, the post had gone viral, thousands of comments pouring in from people who saw their own pain in her fight. Amara felt something she hadn't known in years, her voice mattered. But peace is fragile. 2 nights later, as she rocked gently beside Liam's crib, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, one anonymous message, 5 chilling words. "You'll pay for this." Her breath caught, but she steadied herself, forcing calm for Liam's sake. She checked the window, the driveway still and quiet under the sway of the oaks. Somewhere distant, a car engine faded into silence. The next morning, Amara showed the message to Margaret. The older woman read it slowly, her jaw tightening, but her voice stayed calm. "Evelyn still has allies," she said softly. "But you're not alone anymore." Later, Amara sat in the garden, watching Liam chase falling leaves beneath the golden oak, his laughter carrying into the crisp autumn air. Margaret stood on the terrace above, watching too, her hands folded, her gaze protective and calculating. For the first time since that terrible day in the nursery, Amara allowed herself to breathe deeply, to feel the warmth of sunlight on her skin, to believe, even briefly, in safety. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "You're safe now, Liam." And yet, deep inside, she knew the truth, Evelyn was gone, but not finished. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Thank you for watching this story. If you believe that every child deserves to be protected, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video so more people can hear it. Leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from, and stay tuned for the next stories, where truth, courage, and compassion will always shine.